Welcome to another FaceHammer update video about the old world. It's me, Russ the Face Veal, and we're going to be talking about the new article that dropped yesterday about the combat phase. But before we get into the detail of that, I just wanted to do a quick shout out about the Warhammer World Championships. Not something I'm going to cover in detail, but I just think it's good to say well done to the people that went out there and got there and represented. So this is on the article on the website. I'm not 100% sure I understand this redemption thing and the who plays in the sudden death final, but you can see that Tom Maudsley and Phil both got through. A bit of a shame Phil and Tom had to play each other being from the same country, but there you go. So it ended up being taken up by Nicolas Tasson. I don't know if I'm saying that right, from France. And beating Tom in the sudden death redemption final, Jeopardy final, whatever you want to call it. One of the other things that we had from this was a reveal, which is old world related, so I'll get into that. And we had this new model, this new bone dragon. You can see here in the video, I've paused it because you can see the old Tombskin Warriors and the Tomb Guard and the Stalkers in the back, which are obviously previous kits. And here he is in his glory. It's an interesting model. I'm not 100% sold on the aesthetic of it. I think I like the throne and the rider. The dragon itself, I think it will look better when you see it in a three-dimensional setting. I think I will probably do something with mine using Necrosphinx parts to make it look a little bit more ornate. I think it's a bit naked. It kind of makes sense as a skeleton, but then it's got like bangles on its head and its arms, but nothing else anywhere else. It's okay. I would like to see it in 3 dimensions, so I'll reserve judgment for now. It looks like a bit of a pain to paint, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be fine because it's bone and you just do it with rattle cans and a dry brush and it'll look fine. Obviously, it's quite hard to paint a big skeleton to make it look that interesting. The rider I quite like. This is the king. He's got this throne, and then you can put him on foot if you don't put him on the back. And you've got this lich priest, and he's got a slightly different throne with these hanging bits and a canopy, which I quite like. I'm not sold on this gooey mess coming out of his hand. Not quite sure what that is. I mean, it's like magic stuff, but yeah, I don't know about the sculpt on that. It's a bit strange, but it might look okay painted a certain way. I don't know if it's that's what's throwing me off on that. Again, it might look better 3-dimensionally if you spin the model around, but it's okay. I'm not that excited about it. I don't know why. It just doesn't really tickle my fancy. I think there's some elements of it I like. It might be because it's on a square and it's hard. I'm used to seeing things on round bases, and maybe on like a rotation thing, it might look better. But I'll reserve judgment till I get one in the flesh, because obviously I'll get one because it's a Tomb King model. And one thing that's quite interesting, it does say that both characters will be making decisions in the strategy phase. Now, in the past, like Tomb Kings could do like My Will Be Done, which is like a ghetto incantation. They could do that in the magic phase. So hopefully they've still got some synergy to direct the troops. Obviously, Lich Priests who cast spells, so you expect them, or incantations if they work differently, so you expect them to be active in that phase. So that'd be quite interesting if they do have some mechanic. But anyway, let's get into the article about combat. So this is the article. It's all on Warhammer Community. You go check that out. I'll put a link in the description along with other affiliates and things like that. So you can see here that it talks about choose and fight, calculate result, break, test, pursuit. These are all things we're used to from old editions. There is quite a lot of new stuff in here, or tidbits of new things. So obviously, there were different versions of Warhammer, different iterations of who could fight. You had like Horde, where you could fight in extra ranks. You had like people in base contact, second ranks could fight or support. So interesting to see. So it seems like what they've decided is you fight in ranks, the first rank only. However, a unit with a wider facing can still attack with every model. So if you had like a unit of 10 spearmen and you just charge a single character in the old rules, you'd get like 3 models fighting because you get 1 and 2 diagonal if they're on the same base. Now it looks like every single model in that front rank would fight. It does say there are some caveats that some models may make supporting attacks. So that might be spears, because they always used to be fighting 2 ranks. Pikes are fighting 3 ranks if you didn't charge. And it does say that multiple units can be engaged. So maybe that stops you enveloping if you're charged in 2 units in the front. It says that any model able to fight without being in base contact can only make 1 attack. So that's quite interesting. I think that might make big units of single attack infantry quite strong because they're not really losing any value. And it'll stop you being able to do silly things by charging in like small base things to pin people, with a good leadership. So we'll see. So it says it's time to determine the initiative of who strikes first. So it says models with the highest initiative strike first, with a bonus for charging. Now, in the past, you would just go first if you charged. So now it seems like you're still using initiative, but you're going to be applying a bonus if you've made a charge, because it talks about a troll here. So, and it also says you get bonuses if you go in the flank or the rear. So it could be that a stone troll, who's initiative 1, may strike second on the charge against the supernatural senses of a swordmaster at home, initiative 6. So I would assume if you charge, you're adding a bonus, a flat bonus. So maybe you're adding 4 or 5. 5 would make sense, I guess. So you'd be tied on initiative, but because yours 1 and he's 6, maybe he goes first because his stat is higher than yours. So there'll be something like that. I don't know. There's not enough detail in there to know. You've got the weapon skill chart. Now, it is slightly different because you can hit on 2s. I can't remember if this was in 8th edition or not. I know that previously it was like 3s and 5s and never really got 6s to hit or 2s to hit. So there's no 6 to hit. But for example, if you're weapon skill 4, if you're fighting someone who's less than is basically less than double. So obviously if you've up to 2, double that is 4, you'd be a 3. But if they're weapon skill 1, you hit on a 2. And again, if you look at weapon skill 6, you hit someone who's weapon skill 2 on a 2+. 7, you hit weapon skill 3 on a 2+, which will be a key. That'll be a key stat because a lot of stuff in the game is weapon skill 3. And some characters do have that high weapon skill, like Elf Heroes, Chaos Chosen, characters like Exalted Champions, things like that. There used to be weapon skill 7, Vampire Lords. So hitting on a 2 is pretty big. Obviously, there's probably debuffs as well, which allow you to debuff their weapon skill, which would actually have a bonus now because previously it wouldn't really matter other than when they hit you. And again, like if their weapon skill is more than double yours, you need 5s. It never goes to 6s to hit. There are some stuff in the game that used to be there, like Annoyance and Netlings on Wood Elves and things like that, made you 6s to hit. They were super powerful, super annoying, hence the name. So maybe they come into the game and we end up with those kind of like really annoying, irritating heroes you can't kill. But there is also static combat res, which it talks about in a minute. So, so it says you roll your dice, blah, blah, blah. We know you hit, you wound, they make saves. Casualties removed from the back. That's no different then. Now, what we don't know is, are models that get killed, can they fight? Because it does say here, it says here, your dice roll engaged, it says charging unit has the option to overwhelm its enemies before they have the wit to swing back. So I don't know, because what we had in different editions, so in 8th it didn't matter, but in like 7th, if you killed the models in the front rank, they couldn't fight you because the back ranks step up and that's their go. So maybe that's back in the game, which would be quite important, because that'll make things like Chaos Knight charges always used to be really impactful in that edition, because you'd go in and they would just murder the front rank. You don't fight back and you just lose the combat and then you break, because they do so much damage and they got a high initiative, or they've charged, so they go first. So it's pretty, that makes initiative super important. So that's quite interesting. And then you've got the calculated the combat result. So it says like one side or the other makes the losers push back all breaks. It says you don't flee based on your leadership alone. You have to combat the combat result. So we know this. So you get bonuses. It's the wounds you inflict. So it's unsafe wounds inflicted is 1 point. Rank bonus is 1 point per rank. Normally to a max of 3, but it doesn't say that. Standard is 1. Battle standard is 1. Flank is 1. Rear is 2. High ground is 1. Overkill. So that's just exactly as it used to be for people who used to play. So you basically top up your score and then you compare them, and the winner doesn't take a test, obviously, and the loser takes a test with a modifier. So if you lose by 4, you're -4 in your test. So if your leadership 8, you need to roll 4 or less. If you roll an 8, then what they've changed here now is there's a break and flee and a fall back in good order. So if the natural roll is higher than your leadership stat, then it breaks. So that sounds like that's the old runaway pivot, roll 2d6, run away, you're retreating. But it says the modified roll is greater than the leadership, but the natural roll is lower, it falls back in good order. So it's almost like a sort of orderly retreat. So say for example you leadership 8, you lose by 4 and you roll a 6, you've broken, but you've not routed completely. And it says if it's lower, or you roll a double 1, unit gives ground. So it sounds like even if you pass your test, you're gonna like get pushed back. So it's either like you push back, you fall back in good order, or you flee. So it says it's quite a big change. It does seem that way. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of rules here in the book, so quite looking forward to reading all that and how it works. And it does say there's a lot of tactical depth here. So, look, they've picked an Leadership 8 example as well. So it said, Swordmaster Leadership 8 have come off worse in the combat against Stone Trolls, despite going first, and lost by 3 points. It says, so if they roll a 5 or less, they give ground. If they roll a 6 to 8, they fall back in good order. A 9 to 12, they break and flee. So they do talk about psychology next week, and then they talk about pursuit. So basically, you can restrain, so you can reform your ranks instead. So that's like a reform. You don't chase them. You can follow up. So a unit that gave ground, you can re-enter combat a few inches forwards. It sounds like you're going to push people backwards. If they lose combat and they don't break, you can push them backwards. It'd be interesting to see what happens with undead. Pursue, it says a unit that flees or falls back. So I guess that's the 2 fall back, flee. So those 2. It says that if you catch a fleeing unit, it's destroyed. So if they've routed completely and you run, the whole unit's dead, which is how it used to be. But it says if you catch a falling back unit, you fight again and the pursuer counts as charged. So it's almost like they might run 2d6 and roll 7 and you roll a 10, you catch them, but because they're falling back in good order, it's almost like a fresh charge. So you almost like charge back. Now, I don't know if there's going to be ways to use that, because obviously you could end up with having a second line that means that if something falls back in good order, they pursue and they hit it, you could then have stuff set up to countercharge. I don't know whether you fight straight away Like, do you fight immediately or do you wait till the next combat phase? So interesting. And then you've got overrun. So if you've completely destroyed something, you can make a full move. And then if you end up in another combat, it counts as a charge. Now, an overrun used to be random. It used to be like a pursuit move. So you'd roll 2d6 or 3d6. If you're cavalry, the overrun looks like it's just a move. So, and it does say directly forward. So maybe you can only go in a straight line, and whether or not you'll be able to line those up, because if you've set up your army properly, you're not going to have stuff set up in those lanes that if you fall back, if you get wiped out, they're not going to be overrun into you, unless you want them to, and then you can countercharge them. And it says like ends up another combat counts as a fresh charge. So again, I'm assuming you don't fight that immediately. So you want to set these things up so they go in, kill something, they go into another unit, they angle round, then you've got something set up to flank them. And they might not do that if they pass their restraint test if you've broken. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It does also talk about wizards using assailment spells. So it says you can use like this hammer hand spell. Sort of 7. Again, I think it's 2d6 add your magic level. Don't know. It says an enemy unit that is the cast engaged with sort of 2d3 strength 4 hits with AP of -2. So obviously normally that would be -1 save, but it's -2 because they've got this AP mechanic. So it looks like you do it in combat as well. So mages might not be awful in the combat phase, actually being in base contact or in the front rank of your unit. Then you've got Soul Eater, a single enemy model with the casters engaged in combat, multiple wounds free rule, no armor save. Then you've got Soul Eater, which says that you do a strength 3 hit, cast on 7 as well. I don't know how the multiple wounds things work. Also, I don't know, it talks about models not in base contact attacking. Can you attack a single model in a unit? How do characters work? There's lots of questions about the detail. Obviously, it's quite a complicated phase. There's a lot going on. Does say next week is about morale, psychology, fear, terror, and hatred. So hopefully there'll be some hint on how Tomb Kings or Undead work. How fear works is also quite important for those armies. I'm not expecting to reinvent the wheel, but they've done quite a lot of changes to the game so far in the phases. It seems like there's quite a lot of fundamental core changes. So we'll see. But quite interesting that they've made the combat phase a little bit more like there's different things can happen when you lose a combat. We'll see how it works in practice. But yeah, fall back in good order means that it might be quite hard to break and run something down that's particularly disciplined. So you might end up having to fight something multiple times. Sake. So you might have to fight something multiple times to get rid of it, which, good or a bad thing, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if that means that leadership values will be lower, but I think elves were always 8, and then characters were 9. I'm not sure if they got up to 10, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see anyway. But yeah, that's the article. You can check that out on the website. Hopefully you found that interesting. I'm still looking forward to the next article, which is morale and psychology. And hopefully we'll find out a little bit more about panic and things like that, and how that works. I'm assuming they mentioned panic on the shooting, about 25% casualties. So we'll see. One of the main things that I'll be interested in is like your flee direction, and whether you pivot in the center to center, all that kind of stuff still, or you just go straight backwards, like 180 degrees. How it works, I don't know. So used to be able to really get people out by charging and offsetting your center point to be push them in a certain direction and then overrun in or pursue into something else. Because you could charge two things, which meant you can put the majority of unit really out to one side, which meant your center points weren't directly like that. You charge something here and something here, and then your center points are like this, and then you could go into something else. So we'll see how it works. Looking forward to seeing that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you found that interesting. And I'll catch you all in the next one. And there'll be some AOS content soon. For those AOS, I've been working on my dragons. So my crazy basing dragons, as you can see. So I'm still painting away and going to a team event. I will do a report on how I get on with them. I got a team event in January. So it's the list that I did on my dragon show. So you can go check that out if you want to know what I'm running. Yeah, and I played a couple of practice games, so shout out to my mate Carl, who allowed me to go over to his and have a game the other day, and that was good. Yeah, found out a really fun little trick with Chondrus that his tail attacks isn't, you get one attack per model within 3, but it doesn't tell you that you can't split those on or hit something else. So 13 attacks on Arcan with his tail was pretty good. So yeah, all good. Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you all in the next one, and hope you all have a good day. Cheers.